Hi everyone, this is Alex of digprimal.com. Today I wanted to talk with you about a very important but often overlooked topic of why what you do eat is as important as what you don't eat. So let's talk a little bit about why we restrict food in general, and I say we because I'm totally included in that. I don't eat gluten, I'm very intolerant to it. So intolerances make up a vast majority of the reason that people restrict food. There are also gut issues not related to intolerances, whether that's SIBO or anything else. There are emotional triggers, things that we don't want to eat for whatever reason, skin problems. Obviously, that's related to gut issues, but a lot of times what's on the outside is a little more motivational than what's going on the inside. There are also autoimmune diseases, which a lot of people need to restrict food because of that. A big reason is the news said to. Now, it's hard to go anywhere in the world now, whether that's to the grocery store, online, anywhere, without seeing headlines, eat this, don't eat this, this is not good for you anymore, we decided against it, all this stuff. And then a big thing is I don't know what else to do. A lot of times people are dealing with pervasive health issues that they're having a hard time getting diagnosed or treated, and they don't know what else to do, and food is a great thing to try to work through for that. And so I put all that together to say there isn't a time and a place for food restriction. I do it, and I think it can be very, very helpful. But the thing is that most people stop there. They think about all the foods that they can't eat, and they don't think about what they can or should be eating. So, why do nutrient density and nutrient diversity matter? So that's the main discussion of this topic, and in the end, we're going to decide what we're going to do about that. So let's talk about 4 examples of why we need nutrients in the body. There are a million of them that I could have picked, but these I just thought were kind of fun and relevant to what people talk about. So we're going to go through them real quick. So zinc can help with the production of hormones in both men and women. So for women, zinc helps produce FSH and LH, which are gonadotropins released from the pituitary, and they help promote healthy estrogen and progesterone levels in the body. And when you have good estrogen and progesterone levels and rise and fall of them throughout the cycle, you have good regulation of menstrual cycles, and it's very, very important for fertility. Which fertility, even if you're not trying to get pregnant, is a really important marker of health. In men, low zinc levels can also cause a decrease in testosterone production, and a decrease in testosterone in men, much like the counterpart in women, can just lead to a lot of symptoms and generally not feeling very well. Number 2 is vitamin C, and the fact that it is a powerful antioxidant. I'm sure you've heard the word antioxidant, but basically it means that this compound, as well as anything else that's labeled an antioxidant, can protect from reactive oxygen compounds in the body. So basically, we're always exposed to oxygen in the air when it's and all around us, when it's in the body, and it's necessary for life-sustaining chemical reactions. Things will act on the oxygen, and it will basically make reactive oxygen compounds. And these can go on to mess with a lot of other biochemical reactions in the body that are very important. And reactive oxygen species contribute, we think, to aging and disease. So very, very important that we have compounds that help us deal with these. At the level of the intestines, vitamin C can help protect gut lining integrity. That basically means if here are the cells of the lining, we want these spots in between them to be tight so that things that we eat don't also get moved into our bloodstream, because that can be dangerous and cause a lot of problems. So by helping these junctions be close together and not permeable to big compounds like this is very, very important. Vitamin C also helps shuttle toxins that you would ingest or be exposed to the liver. The liver then detoxifies it and you eliminate it. You know, in whatever things get eliminated in all sorts of different ways, but that's generally how it works. So number 3, phosphorus is a huge part of energy currency in the body in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now this P phosphate comes from the phosphorus that you ingest. So things that like breathing, walking, anything that you do requires ATP, so it's absolutely necessary for life. And then lastly, we're going to talk about calcium real quick. Now, everyone has seen the milk commercials. Calcium builds strong bones, but you also need it for the function of muscles, and that's not just your biceps and all of those things. In your heart, all the cells in your heart also have receptors and use calcium to function properly, so it's used absolutely everywhere. So let's talk about cofactors. So all of the chemical reactions that happen in your body follow a general guide. So you start with the precursor, that's step 1, and you have a chemical reaction that gets you the end result, which is step 2. Now normally they're ones lined up back to back to back that lead to different things, and then usually they circle back around to this. But that's neither here nor there. Just to go from point number 1 to point number 2, you generally need something that helps this reaction happen, and for the most part, those are enzymes. They're called enzymes. Now, enzymes need cofactors. Cofactors that we talk about commonly are things like B6, B12, like if you're trying to make red blood cells in the body, things like that, you need cofactors. Now, this can be anything. They don't necessarily have to be vitamins. They can be minerals. They can be things that don't necessarily even react on this, but just facilitate the action of this. So that's why we're going to talk about all the phytonutrients, which we'll get to in a little bit. When this step, this right here, can't happen because of the enzymes, either this is missing or you don't have the cofactors, your body either will say, well, we can't do this chemical reaction, we have to work around it, or instead of doing it in one step, what it will do is take a bunch of little steps to finally get you to the end result. This version is much more wasteful than the first version. Right, so let's talk about things that deplete nutrients. So things like a high sugar intake. Not only does sugar mess with your hormone signaling and all of that in the body, sugar is very expensive in terms of nutrients. So things like magnesium, this is a really common example that's used, but people say you need like 300 pieces of magnesium you could think of to actually process and break down a bit of sugar that you ingest. And it's like that with a lot of nutrients, not just magnesium. The same thing actually goes for alcohol too. It's just expensive in terms of trying to break it down, because sugar, you are getting energy. You're getting energy, but it's quick energy. It burns out quickly, and if you don't use it, it gets stored as fat. And the thing is, either way, whether you're using it for energy or you're storing it, to actually get it to this end result, you need to use up a lot of nutrients in the process. Stress, this can be emotional or physical or mental for that, matter. Where stress is basically just a way of saying your body is having an input that it needs to deal with, and how does it deal with that input? So stress a lot of times in the body just means that your body uses up the nutrients to overcome whatever this is. Now this can be in the form of environmental toxins. This is pollution, and like I said, these can all be stressors: pollution, skin products, the things that you slather on your skin, if they're not great and have a lot of kind of cruddy chemicals in them, you're basically putting a stress on your body that it now has to deal with. And then especially environmental toxins and the ones that you ingest or put on your skin have to go through your liver where they can get detoxified. And detoxification, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is very nutrient heavy because it has a lot of chemical reactions that go on there, and you need those nutrients to make all those things happen. And what's ironic is that nutrient deficiencies can actually cause a further depletion of nutrients because, like we said, if you're going from step number 1 to step number 2 and you need a nutrient here but it's not there, you have to either make do without it or go all the way around it in a very kind of laborious sort of way to get to this, especially if this is absolutely necessary for life. And in the process of doing that, you're going to deplete a lot of the nutrients further. Now, just to backtrack a little bit, food intolerances can be stressors. And so that's why I'm not knocking the idea that you get rid of certain foods. But here's the thing, that's only one part of the equation. If you're only taking away certain things, but not thinking about how you're going to get in nutrients to help heal what's been going on and to help better your health, then I think that's just... You might be okay for a while, but I think to really thrive and really live well and feel good, you need to think about or everyone needs to think about nutrients and why they matter. So let's talk about where we get nutrients. We can get nutrients in fish. It's a fantastic source, especially anything that any plants as well from the sea. Bone broth, everyone loves that. Organ meats. Organ meats are some of the highest nutrient density foods that you can get because, like I said, the same thing that happens in humans where all of the nutrients are used in chemical reactions in organs, same thing happens in animals. So in their organs is where all of the nutrients are concentrated the most. But you can also get your nutrients from grass-fed muscle meat, just like we normally eat. Grass-fed dairy, if it's tolerated, can be great. Nuts, if they're tolerated, can be great. And oils, same thing there. But today we are going to talk about plants and why they are absolutely essential and why they're so awesome at what they do. Okay, so let's talk about why plants are so great and why that all comes down to phytonutrients. So phytonutrients just means nutrients in plants. Now, we're all very familiar with vitamins. We're all very familiar with minerals. Now we've talked about antioxidants, so we can cross those off the list. Now, plants also have anti-inflammatory compounds in them, which are very, very important because our general living, whether that's in the food changes that have happened that have shifted the omega-3 to 6 ratio, or anything in the environment, stress, we all live really stressful lives. All these things can contribute to inflammation in the body, and plants have all these great anti-inflammatory compounds that help process this. So both antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds, sometimes plants will do is they'll trigger these pathways. So just like exercising triggers the breakdown of muscles so that you can rebuild, plants will trigger these reactions to occur a little more robustly in the body, and the body will actually do the anti-inflammatory and the antioxidant things, but it's really cool that the plants actually trigger that. There's also, plants will also support detoxification pathways. So detoxification in the body, when we say that, a lot of times when I say detox, people think cleanses and going to the bathroom and drinking all sorts of concoctions. I don't mean that. I mean, there are built-in detox pathways in the body. There's like stage 1 and stage 2 pathways. Stage 1, usually for the most part, means toxins are stabilized, so they're less dangerous in the body, and step 2 helps them get shuttled out of the body. for elimination, roughly. That's a very simplified way of saying it. But basically, these really are just chemical reactions as well. So the phytonutrients in plants help support the positive function of these without detracting from that. So that's how they work. Now let's talk about some of these phytonutrients, because we have heard of all our zinc and our calcium and our chromium and the selenium and everything like that, but there are a couple other ones that are really, really interesting and can be incredibly beneficial. So you've probably heard of carotenoids just a little bit, but there are actually over 600 versions of these. That includes alpha-carotene, beta-carotene, beta-cryptoxanthin, they all have really long names, lycopene, which you've heard is in tomatoes, lutein, all of these things. They're generally found in orange, yellow, and red plants. So they're fun to eat. We kind of have heard about these. Flavonoids are similar. You might have heard of quercetin. It's been talked about a lot. It's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory compound. There's a little bit less well-known one of hesperidin, which is an antioxidant, and there are a lot of others. But this is in yellow, red, and purple plants. So we're kind of sensing a theme here, and when you eat, kind of quote, eat the rainbow, you're getting a lot of these things. And then glucosinolates, which are a tongue twister, they also support antioxidant and detox pathways. So like all those things that we talked about before. And this is actually found in things like Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, all of those delicious things that we like to do. So these are some of the more fun ones that we haven't heard about as much, but here's the kicker. No one plant has all of these things, and that's why it's so very important to get a broad spectrum of plants in the diet, whether that comes from like seafood plants, like things like kelp, seaweed, all those things I'm including into it. And we'll talk more about where to get them all. But first, let's talk a little bit more about why plants are important before we get to what we're actually going to do about it. So, fiber. There are lots of different kinds. You've probably heard of insoluble versus soluble. There's fermentable versus unfermentable. And that means fermentable means that the bacteria in your gut can process it. We'll talk about it later. But there's lots of different kinds. The reason I'm not going to go into these differences is because, not to have spoiler alert or anything, but I'm going to tell you a lot of different plants. So these distinctions, while we can talk about them, aren't going to be all that relevant. But here's what really matters. All the different fibers, and some are better at doing this than others, can act as bulking agents in the gut. And when your gut depends on a certain amount of bulk to pass and eliminate waste in the body, because it promotes gut motility. So it basically it's like when you're filling up the gas in your car, and the sensor tells the little thing to click off so that you stop filling up your tank, kind of thing. It's kind of like that in reverse of it says, hey, we're full here, we gotta get this out now. So that does that. It is also the fiber that you eat is a good source in your body of telling it, hey, we have enough stuff here, we're trying to process it, we're full, let's get going and try to digest it, or take care of it. And ghrelin is one of those hormones that gets activated, or rather it gets suppressed and says, we're done eating, or we need to eat more, and all of those things. Fiber also binds toxins and byproducts. This is a really important thing for people who have estrogen dominance. When you have too much of it, and you don't have enough fiber, the estrogen kind of keeps getting recirculated in the body and keeps getting reabsorbed and all those things. And the same thing happens with bile salts, or bile acids, and all of these things that we need to have a balance of in the body. But and there's a limit to how high you can get it before you start having negative outcomes. And obviously things like toxins and things that we ingest, like pesticides and all those things, we want to bind them and get them out. And so fiber does that. And then lastly, fiber can also feed bacteria. That definitely comes down to this fermentable and unfermentable discussion, which we can have later. But why do we even care about feeding your bacteria? Turns out it's super, super important. Bacteria help, once they get the things that they can ferment and digest for you, they make you short chain fatty acids, which is super sweet because short chain fatty acids are really important for the gut. It basically feeds your gut and all the cells and everything. Blood flow obviously gets to there, but to a certain extent it actually gets fed from the things inside your gut. It's also these things are really important for good brain function and a lot of other things for immunity and all that stuff. The bacteria actually help us absorb vitamins and minerals. So we've all heard of sauerkraut being, quote, pre-digested for us by the bacteria. The same thing actually happens in the bacteria in your gut. So a lot of times the vitamins and minerals are all bound up in the food that they're in, and the bacteria actually help break them down and help you absorb them, which is really important. The bacteria, when it's active and healthy and balanced in your gut, helps with the immune system regulation, because a lot of your immune system is in the gut, which makes sense because the gut is basically outside of the body, if that makes sense. It's walled off, it's a separate little area, and the immune system is going to be there to say, whoa, 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 are you getting inside or are you going to stay out? So the fact that bacteria is there, it helps give the immune system a bit of a check and balance type thing. So it's reactive, but it's not so reactive that you're getting into autoimmune diseases and all of those things. And lastly, hormone regulation. A lot of what your gut bacteria does and what it ferments and doesn't ferment and what it helps break down helps regulate hormones, in that it tells them what's going on in the body, what processes need to be increased, what needs to be suppressed, and things like that. And the bacteria actually help you do that. Lastly, and this isn't a huge topic that we talk about in the paleo world, because people say, oh, calories, like we're so sick of talking about calories and they don't matter. I think that they matter a little bit less than what was conventionally taught, but I think they do still play a role. And I'm not going to go a lot into it, but the thing is that plants are super dense on the nutrients and really light on the calories. You can get a lot of food, a lot of benefit, a lot of deliciousness from vegetables, and a lot of nutrients without really getting a lot of calories in, which is a really good thing, I think. So, lastly, what are we going to talk about last? What do I eat? So now we said, okay, vegetables are good, they're really important, but what is it that I actually fill my plate with? Oops, sorry. So these are the things that the 4 groups that I focus on the most. Obviously, vegetables are kind of king. They are incredibly nutrient dense, really great. There's lots of ways, even if people can't eat them raw, you can have them fermented, you can cook them to, whatever degree you need to be able to digest them. They're amazing and they're delicious. Fruits. Now, fruits kind of get some flack in some circles because they are a little bit higher in sugar, but they're rock stars when it comes to nutrients. The other thing is spices. So spices really, even though you wouldn't think that you're getting a lot from them, spices are basically just concentrated plant matter, because you've taken them, you've dried them out. The water content's gone, but the nutrients remain, which is really delicious and nutritious, so that's good. And then herbs, and when I think of this, I actually think teas. So things that you normally wouldn't put in your food, like raspberry leaf or peppermint so much, you can actually brew them as a tea and release a lot of those compounds. So this is a big part of what I fill my plate with. I still eat all those other things that we talked about, your bone broth, your sardines, the fats, all of those things are fantastic. But when I look at my day and I decide what I'm going to eat, these are the things that I really try to focus on the most. So, what are we going to talk about next? To make this happen, I think there are some really important practical considerations. These are the things that keep people from eating as many plants as they really want to, even if they understand how good they are. So we're going to discuss vegetable and fruit storage, how to keep things good, when to eat them, how to make them last as long as possible, and how you're going to get the most of what you spend your money on. Related to that is going to be the discussion of nutrient loss rates in plants. What are the things that lose their nutrients the fastest? So what should we be eating first in the week? And what can we save for later on in the week after we've gone shopping? There's also, I'm going to give you strategies for trying new things, because I think that's a really big hindrance to people. They aren't sure what to do. They aren't sure what to try, and even if they do buy it, they aren't sure what to do with it. And then the concept of building new habits around trying new things and eating new food. So those are the things to look for next, and I will let you know when that comes out. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.